What's up guys, Tim Little, Matt Allen, welcome back to Tactical Bassin. In the next few minutes, we're gonna change everything you think you knew about winter bass fishing and crankbaits.
So for the past few years, we have been designing a crankbait that is specifically targeting cold water bass to trigger a feed response in cold water fish when they should not want to feed. You're going to want to check this out. Cold water cranking doesn't even sound right. You know, traditional thought is that bass are lethargic and slow moving in the winter time. We have been hinting for a long time, as recently as that last swim bait video that we did about a week ago, that there are exceptions to that rule. Back in 2011, when the A-rig really kicked off, we all got a taste of that. All of a sudden, these bass that we were slow dragging jigs for would run down an A-rig. And that was hard to explain. It was hard to explain that away. Well, we started building on that theory, that concept, that there was something different about that A-rig that would trigger bass even in cold water, even in 30-something degree water, 35, 38 degrees. They would suddenly chase when they would chase nothing else. Well, what we found is that it's not that they wouldn't chase. It's that they were very specific about what they chased. They chased an A-rig there for a while, and they chased crankbaits. But they only chase a crankbait when the sound and the frequency are perfect. It is a very specific sound and action that will get those fish going.
So not only does cold water cranking catch a lot of fish, but it catches giant fish. You can possibly put together the biggest limit of your life when it is straight up freezing outside. We're gonna get back to the baits because we're very excited to show you those, but check this out.
Boy, that's a big fish. Oh, that's a double. Let's go slow. Wow. Dude, it's a monster. You loose enough? Yeah. Get off the pile. You're off the pile. Take your time. She's huge. She's right there. Yeah. Let her bulldog. She's gonna make another turn. Big one, dude. Oh. Yes. Oh, buddy.
That is such a giant fish. That was actually 12.5 pounds. You know, when we first started doing this, when the light bulb went off, when we saw these bass chasing down A-rigs on the rod twitch or the directional change, you know, that light bulb went off. And that's, like Matt said, it only works with a crankbait. You can't really get it to, you can't get those fish to trigger in that cold water with a swim bait or a jig or a drop shot. Right. That crankbait, that directional change, when it's deflecting or changing directions and you got that right speed, that right sound, that right action, you're gonna catch the biggest fish around.
You know, there's a reason you guys haven't heard about this up until now. There's a reason we've been quiet. And the reason is very simple. Once we figured out that it worked, that was one thing. We started catching monsters. But we still didn't understand why it was working. And once we had a pattern, we could predict scenarios, we could get bites, but there were times where it would work and times where it wouldn't work. And it took a long time to put the pieces of this puzzle together on why these fish were reacting like that. Why, when you're crawling a swim bait, do you have to go that slow to get the bite? But then you could follow it up with a crankbait on a 7-to-1 reel as fast as you could turn the handle, and when you paused, they tried to rip the rod out of your hands. It didn't make sense in the beginning. Well, as it progressed we got a feel for it. We knew we were triggering these fish. We figured out how their behavior worked and that it was very driven by sound and frequency, the vibration frequency. These fish are so specific. It's not a feed response. This is not a bass that says, oh, I want to eat that. It is a core reaction to the movement of the bait, and they will do anything to catch up to it. They do not have a choice. It comes from inside. So once we got that, we realized that the baits that we had available to us, because there are a handful of baits on the market that you can cold water crank with, but we couldn't find a bait that would work in all of our scenarios. There were baits that were too shallow, too deep, wobbled okay as the water was cooling, but not once it got really cold. You know, there wasn't a bait for every situation. We're actually going to follow this video up with another one in a couple of days. We're going to do a cold water cranking video for you. Explain all the different baits, how to work these things, when to fish them, why it works. That's coming. For now, let's focus in.
Yeah, so this is the River to Sea Tactical DD Crank 75. Tactical, obviously, DD deep diver, and 75 is the size. We put on there depths from 0 to 18, and what that means is you can fish this effectively from 0 to 18 feet. Matt actually has got a little bit deeper, making long casts on straight fluoro, right. But it's taken us some time to kind of redevelop the bill and the shape of the bait to get the right action that we needed.
It took a lot of time to get the bait dialed in, because getting a crankbait, traditionally, you know, summer cranking, the whole goal is to get that thing down fast. That is your goal. Winter is a little different. You know, we're not trying to just build the biggest bait. Here's the bait next to a 10XD. We're talking about catching 12 pounders, but we're not talking about a monster bait. This can be thrown on light gear. It can be thrown on 10 and 12 pound fluoro. It can be thrown on 20 pound braid to a 10 pound leader. It is designed to trigger a feeding response. It has nothing to do with size. In fact, that smaller size is the right size. The bait is 75 millimeters long. It's narrow both directions. It is not an oversized bait. We were trying to mimic that mid-range bait fish. A large enough meal, not too large, fast moving. Again, we were after that very specific sound and vibration frequency to get these fish to trigger and react. 75 millimeters long. It's a very unique bill shape, ultra tight actioned. We played with the bill for a long time. Once we got the vibration that we wanted, bill shape is critical to dive depth, of course, but also to deflection off of bottom, to stay out of snags, and to give us the movements we wanted, because we don't just slow roll this bait. You can do that, it will work, but the magic is in that burn, stop, pause, move it, stop. It's in that aggressive fishing. We're doing this on a 7-to-1 reel, chasing that fast movement. So that bill shape was critical. And then hooks, the packaging says it's a size 2 hook. Brand to brand, there's always inconsistency. So if I was going to try and compare it to everything else, I would call it a size 3 short shank. To me, that is that perfect mid-size hook where it's big enough, if you stick a giant, that you can stay leaning on them and it's gonna be buried in there. But it's light enough, it's small enough that you can still get away with throwing it on 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon. Straight line on a long cast, you will still get that hook in them. Now, colors. We went very specific on colors. We fiddled with colors and made micro adjustments for so long. It's not your standard summertime bait. There's a reason you don't see chartreuse and black. There's a reason there's no bright orange. You don't want a bait for this style of fishing. You don't want a bait that those fish see coming. You want a bait that is coming in hot. They feel the vibration, they see it go by, and then they go as fast as they can to catch up to it. And then when they get there and you pause, the bait looks perfect. That's why color matters. It's that last moment. And instead of veering off, they open up and just massacre that thing. So color selection was really important as well. Now, we were originally talking cold water. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, what Matt talked about with vibration and frequency, we started off cold water. We knew what we wanted, we knew what we needed. What we didn't know is, I mean, we've caught fish down into the like 38 degrees, I believe, is the coldest water that we've actually burned these crankbaits and caught fish in. And what we didn't expect was it to be very effective in warm water, hot water. We actually fished this in 93 degree water temps recently, and it worked better than our traditional favorite summertime crankbaits because of one thing, and that is bait fish. We designed this bait to mimic silverside, shad, your small bait fish. And that this summer, when we were around those bait fish, that frequency, it kind of mimics like a lipless or something like that.
Same ultra tight action.
Ultra tight action. Those fish came unglued in that hot water for this bait as well.
Now, we were pushing for cold water. So what we had in mind when we started this project was a bait to be fished from September to March, the cold water, where there was no crankbait specifically designed for that category. Fantastic for smallmouth, fantastic for spotted bass, year round for those two. Anytime you got into that cooler water, just amazing. We did not know what it was going to do around bait fish in warm water. We had no idea. That was a happy accident. And it turns out that the bait continues to work. But again, we weren't after a summer bait. Maybe that comes later, we will see. But these colors are designed not for that hot water, chartreuse and blue, parrot colored. Yeah. That's not where we're at.
We spent a lot of time tweaking colors and playing around with them, all the way down to last minute replacing the eye colors on the baits.
Yeah.
I was
like weeks ago.
Yeah, recently I was on a trip back in ultra clear water in the Midwest catching smallmouth, and the eye just didn't sit right with me. It had this glow effect to it, and I felt like it was affecting the fish. So we made a running change last minute to get those eyes dialed in. And we spent a lot of time getting this bait perfect, and we think you guys are gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, we rushed to get them here in time because again, September to March, that's a cold water window. We're already into it. So they got a handful of them here as fast as possible. The rest are coming. Right now, they are only available at Tackle Warehouse. They got that entire first run that came in, so you need to get those while they are available, but more will come. They will go to all of the retailers. They'll be widely available, but for the bite right now, that's where you're gonna get them. So again, like every video, we'll link it down in the video description, but for now, it's only at Tackle Warehouse. Hopefully in the next month and a half, you can get them everywhere, but we're already in the middle of the bite.
Yeah, we're really proud of this bait. You know, we were very attentive to detail, and we spent a lot of time dialing this bait in. You know, we got to work very close with Simon at River to Sea. He's a friend of ours. He saw our vision, and he had the
amazing
stuff.
Facility.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say state of the art, but pretty close. I mean, underwater test tank with underwater cameras, underwater microphones, screens to see what the bait's doing in slow motion.
Underwater windows so you can walk next to your crankbait as it's running.
And see what it's doing at different pauses and different speeds, and if it's gonna blow out, and
then all the tools upstairs to make changes on the fly.
Right.
Anything that we wanted to do, we could dial it in along the way. It's easy to make a crankbait.
Right.
Anyone can make a crankbait in 2 days. We weren't after a crankbait. We were after a very specific, targeted move to trigger giant fish during this period. That's what we were after.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we've been prototyping for a long time. We got so many fish, so many, you guys saw the 112. I mean, we have multiple 12s.
3 of them. 3 12s, some 11s, a lot of 10s. It's insane. It should not work that well, but it does, because bass do not behave the way that we thought they did in cold water. The traditional make them eat, or the traditional fool them into eating, slow feed them a jig or a worm or a swim bait, it works. It works today as well as it's ever worked, and you still need to do that. But there is this whole other thing that has been unlocked to make a bass eat. While you've got frostbite on the back of your hands, they will eat with 2 feet of line out on the rod tip.
Yeah, we're very proud, like I said, but even more than that, we're excited to share this technique with you guys, because we feel it can be, you guys can add this to your arsenal, and it's gonna benefit all fishermen. If you guys are willing to put in the time, go out, put on the cold weather gear, and try this. You guys are gonna be blown away with the results. Yeah. So in the next video up, we're gonna do a whole in-depth explaining all of this stuff for you. But we really wanted to introduce you guys to our new crankbait because we're very, very excited about it.
Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, Subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.